early years children into a learning environment where they can play with fire helps to create high involvement levels and high well-being levels and puts young brains into a state of flow.
So I've spent the last 30 years working with groups outdoors in nature, and I started off as a primary school teacher with a background in environmental management, and then soon realized that the school system wasn't the best system to get the most out of young people and people generally, and that of course learning is entirely linked to being well.
Like all nature play and experience, the learning and development is often invisible to the untrained eye, as it is a part of what we call the invisible curriculum. It is the relationship and feedback between the child, the fire and the practitioner that provides the learning.
Over the last 20 years, Circle of Life Rediscovery have worked in partnership with the National Health Service in the UK to develop programmes, usually 10-week programmes or programmes over the year, but I'll talk about that in a bit more, to work with people that have had difficulties, whether that's mental health difficulties or families that have children with disabilities, or people that perhaps have been fostered. So we've worked a lot within the health sector and the education sector, and really the whole context is always nature and the place that nature plays in our well-being and learning.
Knives are wonderful tools to be able to do all sorts of necessary things to survive and thrive in the woodland. We're going to be looking at different kinds of knives for different age groups and how to use them safely.
We use what I call a nature-centric model, which is really about locating the human within nature. We're part of nature and we're going on a journey through life from the very beginning to the very end, however long we live. So our whole model is based on that understanding that we all have different needs at different stages of our lives, and that actually we're part of a wider system, a living system, and then we have a lot of our activities linked to that. Even if it's not overtly, we will be responding to the nature around us in different ways, and depending on our ages, in different ways as well. We work within this idea of 4 key dynamics. So whatever group we're running, there's this interaction, ongoing interaction between the resources we might have to hand, whether that might be particular trees or berries or landscape or human equipment like ropes or magnifying glasses, the place itself, again, access, whether the season, very important, whether we have different elements perhaps of water, and then the client or the learner, where they're at in their journey in life and what they need, and then the practitioner, him or herself, just what the experience that practitioner has, what background they bring, what they are interested themselves, and all these dynamics set the foundation for a therapeutic model, this nature-based model. You could call it forest-based, but it's also nature-based model, and how you reap the benefits of working in nature in a group.
One of my favourite hedgerow plant is the hawthorn tree. It's so beautiful in the spring. It also has these wonderful white, sometimes slightly pinky flowers, and then in the autumn produce these wonderful berries. Now, as with all the wild food, we're asking people to be very careful that they know what they're eating before they make anything with any of these berries, because some red berries could really hurt you, could kill you in fact. So make sure that you take a lot of care in identifying the right berry.
So I think it's important to say that our I suppose our understanding is that we are absolutely interdependent on the life around us. And we know that we're set often in this part of the world in a very Western framework, which puts humans at the top and the rest of creation or life underneath us. And we really believe that, hence why we call the organization Circle of Life, is that we're actually all part of this interlinked system. And although it's so obvious if you're a scientist, I think as a culture, as a way of thinking, we often don't understand that we see ourselves as more entitled, if you like. And actually the world we need to live in my vision is a much more holistic, integrated way of understanding that we all have a place and indeed bring our different gifts to the world. So hence the circle, and also this really important idea of being place attached. We talk in psychology a lot about emotional attachment, but actually being place attached, being belonging to a place, is hugely important in well-being. And although not everybody will always feel comfortable in the outdoors or in a wild or natural setting, over time they can really reap that connection, that sense of place, belonging, and of having a real relationship with the more than human world. So that's really important. So we're really interested in what we call relational experiences, so that everything we do has a relational element. It's this interaction between either you and another person, or you and the actual experience of crafting, fire making, for example, swinging, and the impact that these activities or experiences have on our sensory system.
We always have so many nettles, and this is one of the things you can do. You can eat them straight off the plant, or you can fry them. So here is one of the nettles that I picked earlier. Now when I touch the nettle, I really grasp the nettle. That's where that phrase comes from, grasp the nettle. And when I grasp them, all these tiny little hairs that you can see, they get burst, so they don't actually sting you anymore. But you've got to have a little confidence. So to show you that I'm confident, I'm going to just show you, I'm going to pick a nettle up like this, squeeze it immediately and pick it, put it down there, and then squeezing it, you see I've still got pressure, I'm actually going to start squeezing it and folding it like this. And every time I do that, I'm breaking the little tiny needles, that's what we call them, needles, and it breaks up those needles and it squashes out the juice. And once it's squashed out, it doesn't sting you, so I'm not getting any effect whatsoever of that. And then I squeeze it just to make sure another few times, and then pop it in my mouth. So that's fresh nettles straight in.
To give a sense of our whole model, it's participatory. That's another way of really looking at how we're working and listening to each other and the different people that are part of the program. And we really try and address our position in that model, so that we're not leading, we're actually co-developing together, so that we're very aware of the power we have as facilitators and leaders, and to not misuse that. We call our flagship program the Woodland Project. So the family one project usually involves 4 or 5 families. You can have up to 30 people in the woods, because a family could be 6, could be of 6, it could be of 2, and then you've got high ratios of adults to young people. This is a family project with children with severe learning difficulties, so we have high ratios of the Circle of Life team. We have one adult facilitator from the Circle of Life team alongside somebody from CAMS, the Child and Adolescent Mental Health team, looking after one family. And the project involves parent taster days. So we have the family days, we have parent wellbeing days, which is really important because if the parent is well, if the adult is well, then they have more capacity to look after the children and to respond in a calm way, or in an authentic yet calm way with children and so on.
A lot of the people that we work with, actually to get the courage to come, it's a huge amount of anxiety. And I think once they've broken through that, then I think offering a regular session, I know you, I'm involved, and I can begin to think of myself in a different way.
We take children from the hospital outdoors and just find it really helps them, builds their confidence and do things they never thought they'd be able to do. Low tech, low cost, and hopefully something they can then continue to do.
We have clinical psychologists that will be part of the team, not always, but again, they've really learned that this is such an amazing way to see people outside of a room. So they get to see different aspects of the clients working, either with a family or individually, and they can actually build in ways to support the individuals really effectively because they're in a different setting.
The way we're moving with all the treatments and interventions that we offer what's called a menu of interventions, and I think that something like this should be on every menu, because not everyone wants to sit down and talk to a psychologist or therapist, not everyone wants to take medication, they don't need to either, but actually if someone had the option to do something like this, I think it would be really valuable for them.
We know that when we work in partnership on projects like this, that the feedback that we get from people is fantastic. What we're doing with Circle of Life is offering people opportunities which are outside the sort of traditional medical model.
Because of 10 years of working, well, 15 to 20 years actually, of working outdoors in groups and with the health service, what we have developed is a training that enables practitioners, whether they're nurses or play therapists or a whole host of health professionals, enabling them to take their practice outdoors. So this is a new training that's come out of pilot research, as well as lots of training that we've already running to enable more people to take their practice into the outdoors.
I think for me it's the confidence. I think I've always known that I've loved being outside. I can feel that it's really good for me to be outside in nature. I've felt it for my kids as well. When they've been at forest school, I could really feel the difference in them and the calmness of that environment. And so I've wanted to do this for ages, but just knowing now how to do the risk assessments, how to ensure myself, how to make sure that I'm doing all of the safety things around being able to run groups outside or being able to take my practice outside. And now I've got the confidence to be able to do that, as well as actually the kind of craft stuff and what you would actually do in a setting like this. Like, you know, there's no point in just coming here. I mean, as lovely as it is to come here and sit here, but it's lovely to have all of those different ideas of actually the activities that you can do that really use the environment as well.
I'm using a community woodland that was purchased about 5 years ago and has been put into what's called a community benefit society. So it's being looked after by a committee of volunteers, of which I'm one. And we as an organisation lease a bit of woodland in order to enable the practice.
What I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to blindfold Louis, and I'm going to give him some antlers because he is the deer. Okay, it's going to look really cool. And what's going to happen is everybody else is going to go quite far away, right? Not that far. I'll explain where in a minute, but probably at least as far as the oak tree.
Being in the woods, it means I have natural elements that I can draw on immediately, you know, whether that's wood or whether that's, you know, looking closely at a plant, or it's rich. It's just a rich environment, and you don't have to set it up in the same way that you would if you were in a park. In a park, you would need to clarify boundaries, you know, and you'd have to bring resources in, most likely. I suppose I have a big vision, which is really about facilitating more and more people within the health and education sector to take this work outdoors. Because so my vision is, it's really about I suppose like a human right, that we have a human right to access and play in nature. And I guess there's two things I've always wanted to protect: the natural world, but I realized very, very early on in my early 20s that we're never going to protect the natural world unless we feel this relationship. This reciprocal relationship that we're receiving all the time. So my vision is that through enabling and empowering people to take their work outdoors, and all the sectors. I mean, I say health and education, but you can. It's about facilities. It's about people having that direct experience, and the more that people do that, and the more it becomes normal. So, like a normal teacher would learn about it, not just about the curriculum, about the actual, interaction. Yeah. I think that's my vision, so that people, so you go through life and you've had time in nature, and how we make that happen is about policy change, isn't it? We need big policy change, and we are needing it. Whatever way you go, if you take a economic lens, if you take a health lens, in the end, a climate change lens, in the end, it will always come back to us appreciating and living within the ecosystem that we have, and then benefiting from that. And we thrive when everything else thrives. So that's my vision, a thriving future where we all thrive. Yeah, a bit more of equality, because it's also to do with justice, isn't it? And equality all links in.